Welcome! We're going to learn a form that can be used in several tenses. The way it works is you take a verb stem and you'll change it into the future tense adjective form, which works like this. You'll attach either or a lir. So there are some specific rules to that. I have a separate video about it. I actually have a cheat sheet about it, changing verbs into adjectives. There are 2 cheat sheets, 100% free for descriptive verbs and one for action verbs. So get that. But anyway, you change a verb into a future tense adjective, and then you attach 걸 followed by 요 if you're being polite. For example, take the verb 하다. Get the stem. Now you attach a lir because it ends in a vowel. That's it. 먹다, to eat. 먹을, because it ends in a consonant. 걸, 요. Pretty easy. Now, because of this lir, due to sound change rules, although it's always spelled as 걸, it actually is always pronounced in this form as 걸, with a double consonant there. So instead of saying 할 걸요, you say 할 걸요, 먹을 걸요. So what is this form? Well, I've thought about it a lot, and I've been able to boil it down to its most pure essence. The basic way this form gets explained, and I've explained it before, is that it's used for softly contradicting what someone else has said. This form is used for softly, so not rudely or bluntly, contradicting what someone else has said. So it's kind of like saying, actually, or probably. You're saying, no, you're wrong. I'm going to say something that's actually correct, but I don't want you to take it in a bad way. So I'm going to say it in a soft and polite way. That's what this form is used for doing. However, at its core, it's actually even simpler than that. It's actually just used for emphasizing the speaker's opinion in a soft way. Instead of, I think, it's more like saying, I think, with a bit of a raised tone. I think. It doesn't sound like you're saying they're wrong. It just sounds like you're expressing your opinion. So if someone says pineapples are horrible on pizza, but you actually like Hawaiian pizza, you're going to say, well, I think it's not bad. You're not saying like, you're wrong. You're saying, I think it's not that bad. So it's a soft way of disagreeing. It's a soft way of contradicting, but at its core, it's really just for emphasizing that this is the speaker's opinion. So it's kind of like saying, well, I think, but usually it's not translated that way. Because of that, this is most often used to make an assumption or like a guess that is softly contradicting what someone else has said. So this again will most often be about someone or something else, not about the speaker. Now you could, but most of the time it's going to be talking about something else. So you can translate this in a few ways. Actually and probably are, I think, 2 of the best ways you can translate this in most situations, because it's used for like saying, well, actually, and then you present your opinion, or probably that, it's probably okay. You're not saying, I think it is okay, that's my opinion, but you're like, I think. It's like saying it probably or actually is, like that, with a raised tone. Or it's kind of like, well, hey, I think, or, well, I think, gosh, I think. However, although this is most often taught as a way to contradict what the other person has said, it doesn't have to be you're contradicting them. It can simply be you're just expressing your thought. So how is this form used? When you have a verb that ends with 걸 or 걸요, this is used with a rising intonation on the final syllable. So if you're using 걸, like 하다, you have to add a rising intonation on the final syllable in that verb. So 할 걸요, only the final syllable, as if it's a question. And there's one more thing. The other thing you need to know about this form is that it's only for informal speech. You're not going to be using this in an essay. You're not going to be using this in formal speech. It is a spoken only informal form. Okay, let's just do a few example sentences. 괜찮을걸요? Hear that intonation rise? 괜찮을걸요? It'll probably be okay. 괜찮을걸요? 괜찮을걸요? Should be okay. 별로, not very. In this case, 춥다, to be cold. 안 추울걸요? It's not going to be that cold. It's probably not going to be that cold. 별로 안 추울걸요? Someone's like, hey, should I wear my coat today? 별로 안 추울걸요? 별로 안 추울걸요? so 이것이, this, 더, more, 맛있다, to be delicious, to taste good. 맛있을걸요? So 이게 더 맛있을걸요? This'll probably taste better. Actually, this should taste better. 이게 더 맛있을걸요? 내일은, so tomorrow, 날씨, the weather, 날씨가 좋다, to be good. So 좋을걸요? Tomorrow should be probably good weather. It should probably be good weather tomorrow. 내일은 날씨가 좋을걸요? 내일은 날씨가 좋을걸요? 내일은 날씨가 좋을걸요? You're not saying you're wrong or, well, I think the weather will be nice tomorrow. You're not saying that. It's really just like, it should be fine tomorrow. It has that feeling. So you're softly contradicting them. 지금도, now also, even now. 늦다, to be late. 늦지 않다, to not be late. Now, 늦다 is used in the past tense. 늦지 않았어요. We're not late. Even now, we're not late. For any verb, you can actually use it with the past tense, future tense stem. 않았을걸요. So even if you're using a past tense verb, you're going to say this form, which uses the future tense adjective form. Why? Because the future tense in Korean is actually just used for your expectations, for your predictions, for your guesses. So you're not really saying it will necessarily, you're saying should be. So it's more of that assumption feeling. So it's not saying will have not been late, literally, as much as it's saying we're not late, probably, actually, like that. 지금도 늦지 않았을걸요? 지금도 늦지 않았을걸요? We're probably still not late. Most lessons you'll find about this form stop here because most of the time when you're using this form, that's how it works. You take the verb, make it into a future tense adjective, and then attach 걸 or 걸요, and you're done because you're making an assumption about something. Like it should be, it would be, it must be. That's why you use the future tense with it because you're saying like a prediction. Yeah, it'll be like that. It will be is what you're saying. Even if it's about something in the past, you're saying, oh, I'm certain it would be that, but technically, you also can see this with the present tense and the past tense. So let's take a look at those now. Just like before, we're going to be attaching 걸요, but now we're going to start with a present tense adjective. Depending on whether you're using a action verb or a descriptive verb, this will be a little bit different. For an action verb, to change it into an adjective, you're going to be taking the stem and attaching 는. But for a descriptive verb, this will be either attaching 은 or a nian, whether it ends with a consonant or a vowel. And if this seems a bit confusing, I have a cheat sheet again about how to make adjectives. There are two, one for action verbs, one for descriptive verbs. So get that. So 이다, to be, is a descriptive verb. So you get 인, 하다, to do, 하는. And once you have an adjective, you just attach 걸요, just like before. So again, you're still expressing your thought, but now you're doing it with the present tense. So let's rewind a little bit. The future tense is kind of like saying it should be, it will be, I think, it would, it must be. You're making your prediction or your assumption about something. And that's why most of the time when you use this form, it's going to be using just the future tense because like you're saying, 괜찮을걸요? Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be 별로 안 추울걸요? I'm sure it's not going to be too cold. But if you're saying it with the present tense, then what do you get? 바깥 means the outside. Basically, in this usage, it's the same as saying 바깥보다. So more than the outside, 실내. 실내 is indoors. 실내가 더, so the inside is more. What? 춥다. Cold. 추운걸요? 추운, not 추울, like before. If you're saying 추울걸요, that's saying, I think that the inside would actually be colder than the outside. That's kind of like saying, therefore I suggest that we stay outside because the inside is gonna be, future, I assume it's gonna be colder than going outside. But if you're saying present tense, it is colder. You're no longer making a prediction, right? You're no longer making a guess or an assumption necessarily. You're just making an observation about something that currently is. So what does that mean? Why would you say it's going to be colder inside than outside versus saying it is colder inside than outside? If you are inside of a cold building and you say, man, it's even colder in here than it is outside, why would you want to use this form? Why would you say, I think it's colder here than it is outside? Like, why would you ever say that? it's colder in here, I think, than it is outside. This is the feeling that this form has when you use it in the present tense. You're not saying, I think it would be. You're saying, I think it is. So you're making an observation about something. It's most often just used for expressing some sort of surprise. Like, gosh, I think it's colder in here than it is outside. Do you get the feeling? It's the same form. Now we're just making a soft expression of our opinion. But because we're doing that about the present, we're making an observation, it comes across sounding more as like surprise. Well, it's colder here inside than it is outside. The same form has a different usage because of that nuance difference. So you still will see it used in the present tense sometimes, but not as much as you'll see it used in the future tense. So it's like a surprise, like, hey, I think it's colder in here than it is outside. And if you just translate it as actually, you also would get to the same spot. It's actually colder in here than it is outside. But the reason why you might do that is because you're surprised. 하지만, but, 지금은, right now, 비가 오는 걸요? But it's raining now. Again, you're not saying, actually, it is raining now, or probably it is raining now, because you're not making a prediction about something. Again, at its core, this form is used for softly expressing the speaker's opinion. But when you do that about something that you're observing in the present tense, it's to show you're surprised. It's like, hey, it's raining now. Gosh, golly darn it, it's raining now. You're not using it to say like, man, I think it's gonna be raining now. It should probably be raining, I think. You're not using it for that. 기대하다 is to expect or just to look forward to. 기대하지 않다, to not expect. In this case, 기대하지 않은 답. 답 is an answer. 않은 is the past tense. So an answer that I didn't expect. 인 걸. So this is 이다, to be, in an adjective form in the present tense, which is just 인. 기대하지 않은 답인 걸. Well, that's an answer I didn't expect. Next, we have the past tense. And the way the past tense works is different. You actually use the past tense verb stem. When you conjugate a verb normally to the yo form and you chop off the yo and you attach this and then you attach like all yo, right? To make the past tense. Well, if you chop this off and you're just left with this part, that's the past tense verb stem, is everything up until this part at the bottom. So this doesn't work the way you might think it does. And a lot of Koreans actually feel the same way. And you will see another version of this where Koreans will use the past tense adjective form instead. The reason is because for the regular form, we use the future tense adjective form. And for the present tense, we use the present tense adjective form. So the past tense should use the past tense. It doesn't. It uses the past tense stem. But if you use the past tense adjective form, that's the one that ends with this. Like 하다 becomes 한, 먹다 becomes 먹은, like that. So you might see people say 한 걸요, but what they're supposed to say is 했는. A good portion of the time I see it misused with just the past tense adjective form. It's fine, but I want you to know which one's correct so that you're not confused. 아무도 is nobody. 못했어요. In this case, it's going to be 못했는 걸요, but let's just say it's 못했어요. So nobody could, 못하다, to be unable to. 예상하다 is to predict or expect. 예상하지 못했는 걸요. So you're making an observation based on the past. Nobody could have expected that. You're making an observation about it. You're not saying, I'm sure 아무도 예상하지 못할 걸요. You're not saying, I'm sure no one will expect it. You're saying nobody could expect it. 아무도 예상하지 못했는 걸요. 그 빵은, so that bread, 아침에, in the morning, 다, completely or all, 팔리다 is to sell. In this case, 다 팔리다, it all sold. That's like it's sold out. 다 팔려는 걸요? 그 빵은 아침에 다 팔려는 걸요? So I think that bread actually all sold out in the morning. I think that bread all sold out in the morning. You're not saying it is sold out. You're not saying I think it is sold out, like you're not sure. You're like, actually, that bread all sold out in the morning. You're expressing your thoughts softly and making an observation about something that already happened in the past. And again, there are a lot more sentences in the worksheet on my Patreon page, but you have to join Patreon to see that. I highly recommend getting that, the extra 20 sentences. It'll really help. So that's the regular form 걸요. But there's another form 걸. It looks like this. And the way it works is with only action verbs. You take an action verb stem and you change it into, again, just like before, the future tense adjective form, followed by 걸. However, instead of 걸 or 걸요, you have either 걸 in casual speech or 걸, and then you conjugate the verb 그랬다. Now, technically, 그랬다 comes from a verb, 그러다. And this is already conjugated into the past tense as 그랬다, into the plain form. So you conjugate this however you'd like. If you're using regular 요 form, this will become 그랬어요. Or maybe you could do 그랬어. If you want to be casual, 그랬어요, 그랬네요, 그랬나? Was it? When you're asking yourself. You have a lot of options, but you conjugate this however you'd like, optionally. Or again, if you don't use it, it's only 걸 and it's casual. And this form is a different meaning. Most of the time it's for expressing regret. And it means I should have. So I should have done something. And the intonation is also different. This will end with a regular falling intonation like a regular sentence, not with a rising intonation. This one is saying, oh, I should have. There is also a space before 걸 when you use this form, whereas with the other form, there is no space. 한국어를, so Korean, the Korean language, 더, more, 열심히, harder, 공부하다. So this sentence is going to say, I should have studied Korean harder. Again, 걸. Because of sound change rules, this one also gets pronounced as 걸. 한국어를 더 열심히 공부할 걸 그랬어요. I should have studied Korean harder. 한국어를 더 열심히 공부할 걸 그랬어요. You're expressing regret. 카메라를 가져올 걸. I should have brought my camera. 카메라를 가져올 걸. I should have brought my camera. You could have also added 그랬어 or 그랬어요. Same thing. It's optional. 나도 갈 걸. I should have gone too. 나도 갈 걸 그랬나? Should I have gone too? 나도 갈 걸 그랬나? And again, I should have. I. That is the first person. If you wanted to say you should have, you do not use this form. Instead, to talk about the second person and say you should have, we're not going to be talking about the form today, but you can look it up. You use 지 그랬다. 지 is the regular form, like you should do something. 하지, 가지, 먹지, and then 그랬다, just like before. 너도 가지 그랬어. You should have gone too. So 지 그랬다 is for the second person. 걸 그랬다 is for the first person for saying should have done. Okay, so that is the lesson. Thank you everyone for coming, and I will see you again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.